Within like 5 minutes, it was like a stream, like a little river coming through here, and it filled up pretty quick. Within 10 minutes, all this was flooded within 10 minutes. It was high, it was very high.
Some people even stranded. Rescuers on the move in Southwest Philadelphia.
The porch was submerged. I mean, if you look against my wall, you can see the water line.
Everyone on the block, their car was completely covered. It just looks like a river. It just flowed completely to the backyard. It was just kept rising, just high waters.
Last week, Tropical Storm Isaias whipped through Philadelphia, flooding into low-lying areas and displacing more than 300 people in the region. The Eastwick section of Southwest Philly was one of the hardest hit in the city. Residents say it was the worst flooding since Hurricane Floyd more than 20 years ago. But for this neighborhood, concerns run deeper than flooding alone.
I found out after I purchased the property that it was at an actual landfill back here. Like all this property out here was old landfill, and just last year they took some tests of the soil and it tested positive for cancerous materials.
We met Daniel Torres the day after the neighborhood flooded.
Everything under there, under that orange plastic, is landfill material. So now that the water came through, it's all exposed now.
Now, some residents are concerned cancer-causing toxins may have resurfaced after the flood. It's a largely working-class community that has been at the center of a fight for environmental justice for decades.
The landfill came about when the city dumped their municipal trash in Eastwick, and then others just came and dumped other things. And it was a time in our history when we really didn't have any regulation about where you can dump things. In the 50s, the city decided that they were going to consider Eastwick a blighted community. Under the guise of urban renewal, they were basically seizing land that was held in most cases by people of color, and they were repurposing it. When they did urban renewal, they literally took bulldozers and pushed back the trash to one spot, and on top of where the trash had previously lain, there was now ground where they built homes. That waste under yards and homes really meant that people's front and backyards, in many cases, were contaminated with levels that were unhealthy.
Finally, in 2001, the landfills in the lower Darby Creek area were added to the government's national priorities list of hazardous waste sites.
This landfill used to be a wetland, which was a huge storage capacity for flood waters in general. So it's kind of like just a really unoptimal location for the landfill to be. These homes, from what I saw, had it the worst.
Josh Barber is a project manager for the Environmental Protection Agency. He's tasked with cleaning up contamination in Eastwick.
Since 2016, we have been addressing contaminated soil on residential properties.
Barber says up to 400 homes have been tested for contaminants and remediated. It's a process that involves removing the top layer of toxic soil and replacing it with clean soil.
Did they dig up your property too?
All this back here. Yeah.
They did an excavation and they took the soil out. They replaced it with sand and then put the soil on top. You can see that landfill material is exposed again. And it's also a very strong gas odor. We all have headaches here today. Me and my lady, we have headaches. I would like to know what could come of that landfill material being exposed, because if it was, hazardous before, now that it's wet and it's everywhere now, even in my basement.
Whether toxins entered homes last week has yet to be determined.
We have history to basically suggest that the flooding didn't cause widespread soil contamination in the past. So if everything holds true, that would be similar now. But, if there's questions regarding that, we can do additional testing local to the site to see if there's any issues that occurred.
The EPA is testing water samples and looking out for any disturbances to the soil they replaced.
We're inspecting the neighborhood, but also as residents contact us. You know, we're going out to take a look at every property to see if anything that we had done had been damaged by the storm.
The agency expects test results by the end of the month.
You know, you're not going to develop cancer or some health concern after one exposure just based upon the levels we know of out here, but it's more of a long-term, like everyday kind of thing, like days at a time for years at a time.
The EPA says before the storm, it had remediated the soil outside around 200 homes. It has about 10 left to go, but the process is on hold due to COVID-19 restrictions. As Eastwick cleans up, residents are asking for accountability and protection in the wake of the next big storm.
Hey, how you doing? Especially those, you know, that are senior citizens around here that a lot of them can't do for themselves, or the older couples around here, like what kind of support and help are they going to get? Because they can't, you know, come out here and clean up this, you know.
They really feel as though the city hasn't put in the effort in a way that truly will protect them. They had this terrible flooding years ago with Floyd, and now again, and they really, they think they deserve better. We think with climate change, there will be more of these very large downpour events and cause these kinds of problems perhaps more often.
But now the salt exposed again and washed in my basement, so where do we go from here?